Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 516 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as always by former heavyweight world title challenger, the main man himself, Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great, my man. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. I'm going to dive straight into the review part of the show here. I don't think there's going to be anything that I'm going to need to come to you for. Not too much went down last weekend, and I also didn't see lots of it myself. So, like I said, we're going to start here. Last Friday, September the 5th, at the Free Arena in Dublin, Ireland. Over here, it was live on Channel 5. We saw Charlie Edwards move to 21-2, friend of the show, former champion. A unanimous decision for him over 10 rounds against Salvador Juarez, who's now 20-10 with 2 draws. That one for the vacant WBC International Super Flyweight title. Good stuff there for Charlie. Also on the card, the main event, we saw return to the ring for Michael Conlan. He's now 20-3, a TKO for him in just the 4th round against Jack Bateson, now 20-2 with a draw. That one for the vacant WBC International Featherweight title. Bateson down in the 3rd and once in the 4th. That knockdown in the 4th, I think he either twisted or sprained or, did something to his ankle there for sure. He went down. He was in serious trouble, and he couldn't really walk, to be honest with you. Couldn't really walk properly, couldn't box on. But he was being dominated really through those first few rounds from Michael Conlan. I was quite surprised. I did actually say that I fancied Jack Bateson for the upset at 2-1 odds, just because I think Conlan's absolutely shot. But it seems like we are going to see Conlan obviously step up again, and that will be the time to put the money on him losing. So I'm not like a hater of Conlan in any way, but I just don't think he's got much left. But he did actually look pretty decent in those opening 4 rounds there against Jack Bateson. Would have been interesting to see what he looked like around about round 7, round 8 though. But we didn't get to find out. Moving now then to the Centro de Usos Múltiples in Sinaloa, Mexico. Over here on the zone, we saw Pedro Guevara move to 43-5 with 2 draws. He stepped in with Alexis Aguirre, who I believe was a late replacement. Could be wrong. He's now 13-1-2. They boxed to a split draw over 10 rounds there. And then the main event, Eduardo Nunes, now 29-1. Obviously 30 pro fights, 29-1. A unanimous decision for him over 12 rounds against Christopher Diaz, now 30-6. Diaz down twice in the 7th round, but managed to get up and hear the final bell there. That one for the IBF Super Featherweight World title. A successful defense there for Nunes. Moving now then to the final card of the review part. This one went down at the Rainton Meadows Arena in the UK in Tyneham, where we saw over here Pat McCormack topping the card. He's now 8-0. His opponent retired on his stall at the end of round 9. Didn't come out for the 10th and final round. I actually didn't see that fight, but Miguel Parra, the man in question, he's now 25-6 with a draw. That one was actually an eliminator for the WBA welterweight world title. Pat McCormack had a point took in the 6th round for a low blow, but like I say, gets the stoppage, now 8-0. Also on the card, we saw Sandy Ryan move to 8-3 with a draw. A unanimous decision for her over 10-2s against Jade Grierson, who loses her. She's now 5-1 with a draw. And also, last but absolutely not least, Mark Dickinson, 8-1. He was supposed to be defending his English super middleweight title. He lost the belt on the scales for coming in well over the weight. And he stepped in with Troy Williamson, friend of the show, who was coming off a loss last time to Jahai Tucker out in the States. Troy Williamson now 21-4 with a draw because he sprung the upset. He was a 3-1 underdog. It was a fantastic fight while it lasted, and credit to Troy Williamson. He got the TKO in the 9th round. Unbelievable win for him. You know, he was very confident going in. He's always in tremendous shape, Troy Williamson, and I think the odds were extremely disrespectful to him because Mark Dickinson, let's face it, hadn't boxed anywhere near the level of a Troy Williamson. Troy Williamson laughs in the face of the bookies and the odds makers, really, and that's a cracking win for him. I'm really over the moon for him. I sent him a text right after the fight, bless him, and he's now gonna go on from this and get a bigger fight. So that's fantastic stuff. Really made up for Troy Williamson. That though brings the review part to a close. It's now time to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBO Heavyweight World Champion. It is, of course, my good friend, Mr. Joe Parker. Joe, welcome back on the show, my friend.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Joe, it's always a pleasure, man. So we last spoke back in January. At the time, obviously, you were getting ready to fight Daniel Dubois, the fight that never was. Obviously, you end up fighting Martin Bakole instead. With a world title shot looming, I felt that the Bakole fight, even though his preparation wasn't ideal, it was still an incredibly risky fight. Because if you lose that, the world title shot vanishes. You'd have been at the back of the queue. We know how the game works. What sort of pressure did you feel going into that fight, even though it's in the past now?
Yeah, when you touch back on that fight with Daniel Dubois and heading to the press conference, we found out on social media that the fight wasn't going to happen, or the fight was, sort of in danger of not happening because we saw that he was sick or injured, whatever it was, right? And then we looked down the list, and I just wanted to, at that time, I've done all the training, I've prepared well, and I'm ready to go, and I'm ready to fight. So we looked down the list, we seen a few names, and the name that popped out to me was, I thought, even though his probably preparation wasn't the best leading into the fight, but I thought, the most dangerous person would be Martin Bakole. I've had rounds of sparring with him, so I know how good he is, or how good he can be. And I was in that state, I was just keen to fight, keen to lock something in, keen to get into the ring, and keen to have a fight. And I know it was a good result for myself and the team, getting that stoppage in the second round. And it wasn't really a good result for Martin Bakole, but we knew how risky it could have been. It could have been like one of those banana skin fights. And he also knew the risk as well. He knew the rewards and the risk. And I guess it was my night that night.
And Joe, how strong was he? Because obviously you're an extremely strong guy yourself, but I'm told Bakole's like freakishly strong.
He's very strong. I've had the experience of or the pleasure of sparring him when I was in camp with Tyson, and I can honestly say that he's a great talent. He's a tough man. He's strong. He's powerful. He's very deceptive. But I guess when I prepared a lot better for that fight than he did.
Okay. And obviously we know that Daniel Dubois basically avoided the fight with you. He managed to backdoor his way into a Usyk rematch. Financially, I can't say I blame him, but I felt that you were mistreated in that situation. We know what happened. Usyk stopped Dubois in statement-like fashion. What did you make of that fight there?
Listen, if any of us were in Dubois' shoes, we'll probably do the same thing. He was the IBF champion of the world, and they were looking at doing a big undisputed unification fight. So if we were probably in his shoes, probably would have done the same thing. Saying that, though, that he went into the fight and he just fought a Usyk who came out with a lot more aggression, a lot more pressure, and Usyk looked powerful in there. I know it was, a lot of people blaming. I don't know. There was a big party before the fight at his house, but I guess they done that before the Joshua fight. It worked in their favor, and they probably did it again, and it probably didn't work this time. But Daniel Dubois is young. He was the champion of the world, and I'm sure he can come back, but he just needs time to rest and recover and get whatever he needs to get right in terms of training or getting his mindset right. Whatever it is, he's got time on his hand.
And as soon as that fight was over, people were on social media saying, Usyk, you have to fight Joseph Parker now. There's no one else you can fight. Obviously, we know that you've got a different fight now coming up. You'll be boxing Fabio Wardley October 25th at the O2 Arena. Firstly, Joe, just tell me what you know about Wardley.
Wardley, I watched his last fight with Justice Cooney and Fraser Clark, and I think with Wardley, they've mentioned that every time he steps up, he gives a good account of himself. And even like, say, for example, the last fight, he wasn't really winning the fight, and he was losing on points. And then in boxing, one punch can change anything. We always say that, but that was a great example of one punch can change everything in a fight. And he possessed his power. I think his knockout ratio is quite high, probably one of the highest in the heavyweight division. And he's got a great story behind him, starting off as a white-collar fighter and then making his way through the pro ranks and now WBA mandatory. So I feel like it's a great challenge. I know that the Usyk fight was one of those fights that we're talking about, and I jumped in the ring and congratulated him and said, well done. He put on an exceptional performance against Daniel Dubois, and I said, me next. And he just said, I need to take time to rest and recover, see my family. So I know he's taking time, and he said he was injured, and he probably is, but he's taking time to rest and recover. And once he's back, he's champion of the world, undisputed. He's still got a lot to give. So I need to get past Fabio Wardley, and then I can start talking about more fights out there.
And it's interesting that you touch on Wardley's last fight. I was sat ringside, probably in the first or second row, and he lost every second of that fight to Justice Cooney. Just as I was typing in my notes, saying that tonight Wardley has been exposed. All of a sudden, bang! I looked up and the punch had landed. I actually missed it in real time. One thing I want to say, obviously we know he's a powerful guy, Joe. You're a lot more mobile now than you were under Kevin Barry. The game plans have been fantastic. I'm the first one to say that. You also have a fantastic chin, which we know. But is it important in this fight in particular to pick when and when not to trade with a puncher like Wardley? So in some ways similar to maybe the Wilder fight.
Yeah, listen, going into the fight, obviously, I've had time back in New Zealand to build with George Lockhart, but now we're in camp. The full focus is working on the boxing side of things and the detail and zoning into what combinations will work and picking apart things that can go right, things that can go wrong, or things that we can work on. I think it's very important in this fight, even though he possesses power, but you have to be very careful in there. You still have to be structured in your approach. You have to be calm. You have to be precise. And you have to pick your moments, and you don't want to pick a moment where you can just walk in and get hit as well, So if he possesses that power, it can easily go the other way. So you just have to be smart in there, and I think it's just staying alert every second, every minute of every round.
And also, Joe, what actually attracts you most to this fight here? Because I don't feel like you actually have too much to gain, in all honesty, in this fight. I think Wardley does, but maybe I'm mistaken.
No, it's not really a lot to gain. It's just a fight that I wanted because I wanted a fight and I need a fight. I think staying out of the ring for too long gets you nowhere. And I think momentum is key. If you look, I've had one fight in 2024. I've only had one in 2025. And in between those fights is nearly a year out of the ring. And I think being out of the ring for a year is just not good enough. If he can get 3 or 4 fights in 1 year, you're laughing, and it's great. So I think momentum is key. If you're getting rounds in the ring, it's going to be great for your just working on your skills and working on technique. And I want to fight. I've been waiting since February to lock in the fight, and just thankful to the team, my team, and Queensbury for making it happen.
And talking of being active and momentum and stuff, fun fact, obviously this will be your 40th pro fight. There's only 2 men in the top 100 heavyweights that have had more fights than you. Do you know who they are, Joe?
Wilder?
That's one of them.
Wilder and, not Usyk, Wilder and...
I'll give you a clue. You have boxed the other guy as well. You've boxed both of them.
Chisora.
There you go. That's the two. So you're actually third out of 100 of the top 100 that have had that many fights. Yeah, crazy, huh?
It's quite crazy when you think about it. Like, this is fight number 40. I know I've been in the game for about 12, 13 years now, but I just feel like even after I've had all these fights, and this is number 40, I feel refreshed and renewed, and passion and energy and love for the sport has grown. So I'm just excited to still be involved in big fights and top fights, and I want to give the best account of myself.
Yeah, I mean, you're a lot fresher than those guys. Those guys turned pro a few years before you as well, so it's a fantastic factor there. I didn't think you'd be able to get those other two so quickly, but well done. My final real question for you, Joe. It's a massive fight this weekend. Which way are you going on that one?
So there's two big fights. There's one here in Belfast for Paddy Donovan and Crocker. And I feel like with this fight this weekend, it's Paddy's time. He's going to be champion of the world. And for Crawford and Canelo, for me, that's a very hard one to call. Canelo being the bigger man, Crawford being very talented, being able to switch back and forth, orthodox, southpaw, very good. I don't know. It's just for me, this is a very hard one to call.
Okay, you're sitting on the fence, yeah.
Do you know what? If I had to pick one, I think I'll go for the underdog. I mean, like, everyone's going to go towards Canelo because he's the bigger man. And Canelo is one hell of a fighter, tough, strong, powerful. But I'll go for the underdog in Crawford.
Okay. Just before we let you go then, Joe, same as always, my friend, if you've got a little message to the listeners, it's always a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, for everyone listening, honestly, grateful for the support, for not only for listening to all the interviews on here, but for the fighters. Continue to support us because we appreciate it. We're grateful, and we're just going to go out there and put on the best performances we can and give you guys something to enjoy. So thank you guys very much. God bless, and I'll see you guys at the O2 Arena on the 25th of October. Let's go.
There we go. Listen, Joe, as always, mate, thanks so much for your time. I'll be supporting you on the 25th of October. Best of luck, and we'll speak sometime afterwards.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. We're going to start here straight away with the preview part of the show. We're going to start here at the Gimnasio Alexis Arguello in Nicaragua. This one is a decent card, really, for Nicaraguan standards. Not that I'm having a go there by any means, but we have over here former world champion Christopher Rosales, 37-3. He's the guy that Charlie Edwards dethroned all them years back. He's back in an 8-rounder against Camilo Mendoza, 12-3-2. We also have on the card Rene Alvarado. He's always in a good fight, 35-16. He steps in with Ellison Marquez, 12-4 with 2 draws. And then the main event is return to the ring for Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, 52-4. He's back in a 10-rounder against Hector Robles, 13-8 with 3 draws. In all honesty, this is more of a showcase kind of card, really, between those 3 big names. They're coming back against guys that they should beat relatively easily, but we'll have to wait and see. And then moving to the big one of the weekend, it goes down live on Netflix, which I was very surprised about. I didn't even know till this week that it's not a pay-per-view. You can literally watch it for free with your subscription. Unbelievable value there. Let's go to the undercard firstly, though, and there really is a few fights to mention here. I like this one. It's Callum Walsh in a bit of a step up. He's 14-0. He steps in with Fernando Vargas Jr., who's 17-0. I was quite surprised that Fernando Vargas had as many fights as 17. Seems like he's I remember him being like 2-0, and it feels like it was about a year or 2 ago, and somehow he's got himself to 17-0. I don't remember watching much of them fights either, but you know, he's a decent fighter by all accounts. I don't think he's the best of the Vargas sons or Vargas brothers, as they're kind of emerging into now, but you know, he's a decent fighter, like I say, undefeated. He can punch, so it's going to hopefully be a good fight here with him and Callum Walsh. What else can we say? We're going to move on from that one. That's over 10 rounds, though. We also have this one, which is quite interesting. Ivan Dajko, 15-0 with 14 KOs. He's back here. He's 35 years of age. He's a Kazakh fighter. He's 6'9", and he is obviously quite well known, I suppose, really for being, a very good amateur. He boxed some great fighters in the amateurs. He beat Jalalov a couple of times, more than once. He boxed some really, really good fighters in the amateurs. Anthony Joshua, amongst others, Hrgovic, Zhilei Zhang, a couple of times Zhilei Zhang. He boxed, what's his name as well? God, it's completely slipped me. Joe Joyce. He boxed Joe Joyce. He's a very, very good high-level amateur, Ivan Dajko, and his pro career has been, extremely impressive as well, really, with the 14 KOs in 15. However, there's been kind of a lack of step-ups. It's really been quite slow, and, you've got to think about his age, 35 years of age, and I don't quite know what the plan has been. However, this is a good fight for him. He steps in with Jermaine Franklin Jr. of the States, of course. A man who I think deserves a hell of a lot more respect. For some reason, his name just doesn't stick in your mind when you talk about the best heavyweights that the US has to offer. Jermaine Franklin is not there for some reason. People will mention your Deontay Wilders, your Big Baby Millers, your Big Baby Andersons. They'll mention Michael Hunter. They'll mention guys like Deontay Wilder, even though we don't think he's got too much left. But for some reason, you don't see Jermaine Franklin. You even see Charles Martin up there before his name. I don't know why. His two losses were to Dillian Whyte and Anthony Joshua. He arguably beat Dillian Whyte, and he put in a decent account of himself against Joshua as well, to be honest with you. So I don't think he's a bad fighter at all. And he's boxed twice since those two back-to-back losses. He's got 2 wins there, and he gets in with Ivan Dajko. So again, I'm expecting it to be a tough fight here, and Dajko might not get the stoppage. So it's going to be interesting. The odds have actually, the odds makers have got it quite close. We also have Christian Mbili, 29-0, always in a great fight. I love watching him fight. He's back in a 10-rounder here. It's for the WBC Interim Super Middleweight World Title. He steps in with 19-0, Lester Martinez with 16 KOs, the Guatemalan fighter. I think that's what they call people from Guatemala. But yeah, again, a lot of people tipping Martinez to get the win here. But most people feel this is not going the distance. Both men can obviously really punch. And yeah, there's a few people that I really respect in boxing and stuff, and they're tipping Martinez, so I haven't seen tons of him, I've seen lots and lots of him, Billy, and I think he's such a talented fighter with a really, really, fan-friendly style. But yeah, this could be his undoing here. We're going to have to wait and see. We also have 26-2 Sergei Boachuk. He's back against Brandon Adams, 25-4. Obviously, there's history here. At one point, I think Boachuk at the time, I want to say, was about 18-0 with 18 KOs. That's off the top of my head. He stepped in with Brandon Adams and he ended up getting stopped. I think that one was during lockdown as well, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong about that bit there, but basically, he got stopped to Brandon Adams. It was a humongous upset in Puerto Rico, as you know I love saying. And Brandon Adams kind of went away. He didn't really do too much, in all honesty, since then. He kind of dropped down a level or two. He took another loss again. He's coming off that loss now for this rematch. And it's time for Boachuk to get his get back. But yeah, it's been over 4 years now, 4.5 years now it's been. And in that time, look what Boachuk has done. I mean, he's gone on to, stop a bunch of other people. And, had that great fight with Virgil Ortiz. Obviously beat Brian Mendoza in there as well. So yeah, it's a decent rematch, but I think even the bookies think this as well, that Boachuk has kind of gone on to show that he is probably higher up in level than he showed that night there. So I'm expecting him to get his get back here and probably by a stoppage as well. But it will be interesting to see because, again, Brandon Adams is quite a tough and sturdy guy. And then the main event, of course, for, if I'm not mistaken, all of the belts. Yeah, of course, all of the belts at super middleweight. We got Canelo Alvarez, 63-2-2. We got the perfect 41-0 Terence Crawford in the other corner, moving up 2 weight divisions to super middle. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I'm so excited for this fight, you know. Obviously, at first, when the fight got made, I think I was heavily favouring Canelo Alvarez, Eddie, and I will come to you in just a second. I was heavily favouring Canelo Alvarez, obviously, with that you know, that old saying that there's weight classes in boxing for a reason. And I was very much on that kind of fault train. And one thing that I completely forgot about is that Canelo had that fight with William Skull. That was his most recent fight, just 4 months ago. And obviously, it was such a forgettable fight that I completely wiped it from my memory. So I remember him, obviously, on a pretty decent run. You know, getting in with Edgar Berlanga, Jaime Munguia, Jamel Charlo, John Ryder, Gennady Golovkin in their third fight. He's done all of that back to back to back, which is phenomenal. And I actually disagreed with a lot of the people out there that were saying that Canelo does seem to be on the slide. There was 1 or 2 fights, well, really and truly, it was for me just the Bivol fight where I thought maybe he's getting a bit, he's on the slide a little bit maybe. And then he had the Golovkin fight, which I think was a little bit of a formality. By the time the third one came around, I felt that he was going to win anyway. And, you know, he did what he did. He won on points, you know. But around that sort of time, that's when I thought, okay, maybe he's on the slide. But then after that, the way that he beat John Ryder, the way that he beat Jamel Charlo, the way that he beat Munguia, the way that he beat Berlanga, I was quite impressed with all of that, despite going the distance in all of them, by the way. But that Skull one I forgot about. That's one there where we really saw that he's quite slow with his footwork and stuff. But that aside, I wouldn't say that he's on the slide, because I think he looked good again in those fights I mentioned. So I disagree with a lot of people saying that he seemed to be on the slide. I actually think he's been looking as good as ever in those fights there, bar the Skull fight. As for Terence Crawford, obviously another guy that's gone through the weights, as we know. We all know the story. He beat the living crap out of Errol Spence, to be honest with you, in that final fight at welterweight. Made the move up to 154, boxed Idril Madrimov. Won the fight, but it was very, very close, very, very competitive. And we've seen Madrimov go on after that to lose to Virgil Ortiz. And Virgil Ortiz, he gave him a good fight again, to be honest with you. But, you know, Virgil Ortiz isn't on the level of a Terence Crawford, let's be honest. So that was his one little peak at 154. And he's now moved from 154 past middleweight up to super middleweight. And like I say, that one step up from 147, he didn't look his absolute best. But Madrimov at the same time needs to be given a lot of credit for that. It's a big jump for Terence Crawford. It really is a big jump. But one thing that I have seen, again, other people debating, is that the footwork of Terence Crawford, the movement of Crawford, is going to give Canelo Alvarez issues. Canelo has always struggled with movers. We all know this. Whether or not Crawford will want to be that mover, want to win the fight by moving, by not standing in the pocket at times. Whether he will want to do that or not, I'm not entirely sure he will. He doesn't seem to kind of follow the rules, Terence Crawford. He seems to get in there and make the rules, in my opinion. And I don't think he's going to, you know, he's not very predictable. I don't think he's just going to go in there and do the obvious. There's going to be more to what he's going to do. There always is. You know, he really is the full package. I love Terence Crawford. He's my number one pound-for-pound fighter. He is above, in my opinion, Usyk. He is above, in my opinion, Naoya Inoue. Everyone's got the same top 3, but he is genuinely my number one. So yeah, the weight class thing bothers me. Canelo I don't think is on the slide as much as people think, and it bothers me that the one time we saw Crawford move up from 147, he didn't look his best. But again, that has a lot to do with Madrimov as well. But it's a big jump. It's 14 pounds even from that weight there. And we know that Crawford's not going to, he's bulked up a bit, but we know he's not going to like come in, Eddie, after that weigh-in and put on a bunch more weight. We know that's not going to happen, but we know that Canelo will do something like that. So I think on the night as well, there's going to be a big difference between the two men. Crawford's body is not used to not only getting to this weight here by bulking up, but then putting on even more weight after the weigh-in. That's something he's never done at this kind of weight, So I don't think he's going to be doing that. Whereas Canelo will come in massive, and on the night, I think that's going to give him a big edge. Whether or not Crawford is still good enough to deal with all of that adversity and still win, that is the question. So I've been swaying, and I think this whole week I've been on the Crawford train. However, I know how difficult it is to get a decision as well against Canelo, and let's face it, there's no way in the world he's going to knock Canelo out. That's completely not happening. You can forget about that. I don't think anyone thinks that's going to happen. Surely not, for goodness sake. So I think I'm going to go Canelo, Eddie. I'm actually going to do a last-minute change. I'm going to go Canelo. I hope I'm wrong. I want Crawford to win. Let me make that clear. But I think I'm going to go with Canelo, and I think I'm going to go with points. I'm going to go with points. Yeah, I'm going to go Canelo points, Eddie. Give me your take on the main event and any of those undercard fights if you want to revisit any of them, because it's a real juicy card.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go in the main event for now. This is a very, very interesting fight, obviously, because we've seen Crawford do amazing things over the course of his career. He moved up from 35 to 40 to 47 and knocked everybody out at 47, which is to say after you've started your career at a lower weight, to carry the power up as far as he did, doing what he did at 47 is awesome. You know what I mean? And then, he's won every fight, obviously, in his career. Even with Madrimov, I think, like you said, a lot of people, aren't really given how difficult a fighter he could be, especially when Crawford was just going up. First fight in the weight class, just it's a weird thing for him. You know what I mean? But we're talking about now him moving up to fight the best of the best at 168, which is 3 weight classes from his best division. And like we all said, even though Madrimov is a good fighter, is he Canelo worthy as far as in comparison? Now we know triangle theories and all that don't matter, and then when we bring in Virgil Ortiz and Virgil Ortiz pretty much, he beat him. I think Madrimov did well, but Virgil Ortiz definitely won. It starts to make you think like, well, what are we going to see as Bud moves up now? 3 weight classes or 2 weight classes from even there. And I know everybody's trying to make the big case about weight and all, this and that. They're nearly the same size, and, Bud is strong and all that. But I just think Canelo is just a different animal when it comes to there. And one thing that really makes me look and see this is when you look at Charlo's face, when Charlo stepped up those 2 weight classes from 54, and he was an undisputed champion at 54. Regardless of whether the opponents he had was, to that level. But he went up there, thinking, oh, he's small and blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as those punches started landing on his arms, not even into his chin, he had a whole different perspective on life after that. And basically just toasted and just tried to survive. So now I know Bud is a different animal and has a different thought process, and he's not backing down at all. Not to that degree anyway. He'll box. He'll do what he's supposed to do. But when it comes down to it, he's a fighter, and he's going to put his best foot forward to that degree. So I think that's going to be to his undoing. I think, once he gets in there, he's gonna, he'll do well boxing. You know what I mean? But let's not forget that Canelo can also box. He just happens to be coming forward. He's a come forward guy, and that's just the way he's always been, especially now. But no one has forced him to have to box. You know what I mean? Nobody was able to come forward, even with Triple G. In that sense, these guys were just two bulls that was banging heads together. And they weren't going to take a backward step. So for them, it was a little different. But I think it's just going to be so difficult, and for Terrence to be able to make this jump and to not only take the punch from Canelo, but also give him a punch that's going to get respect. Because the problem is not so much that, Canelo is going to be coming forward. It's the fact that you can't stop him from coming forward. You know what I'm saying? If you could give him something, just like I said with Earl Spence, if Terrence can give him something to make him take a back step or to make him question coming forward, that's a different story. And then you say, okay, well, William Skull, he can outbox it, but that's just not Bud's MO. But Bud's not going to get out there and just peck his way to a close decision. You know what I mean? Or even a close decision and loss. That's just not his MO. So he's going to go in there and he's going to try to make history. You know what I'm saying? He's going to try to be the best that ever did it. That's what he's going to go set for. And I think that's where Canelo, he falls into that trap, and Canelo gets him. You know what I mean? I hope that it doesn't work out that way. I hope that Terrence is able to box his way into the fight. You know what I mean? Make it, at least be in the fight, which I have no doubt that he will be, but not so into it that he gets too confident, too comfortable, that he goes in and he takes one of those big shots. And more importantly, that if he takes those shots on the arm, that he realizes, damn, this is definitely a heavier weight than I've been at. So, I want to see a great fight. I like both fighters. Obviously, I would love to see Terrence Crawford win and do it. But, man, it's just going to be a really difficult challenge. And if I'm, forced to pick, I would pick Canelo, either points, decision, or I'll pick him for a late stoppage. And I know that's like, what then? You've never seen Crawford even, he was hurt before, but we never even seen him in trouble where that could even be possible. But that's what I'm trying to tell you, is that Crawford will stand and fight you. You understand what I'm saying? He's going to give his best effort to win this fight. And if that means going into the fire, I believe he will not hesitate to do it. And that's where his undoing comes. We can't, you got to stick to the role. And I don't know if he can. If the chips are down, he's going to fight his way out. And I think that's the problem.
We're all going to be tuned in. It's going to be absolutely unmissable. I just wanted to ask, Eddie, if you did have anything at all to say on some of those undercard fights. Obviously, just to remind you, you don't have to say anything on them, but Sergei Bohachuk rematching Brandon Adams, hoping to get his revenge. Christian and Billy in with Lester Martinez. I don't know if you've seen anything of Martinez. Ivan Dyko, 15-0, 14 KOs. The Kazakh stepping in with Jermaine Franklin. And obviously Callum Walsh with Fernando Vargas Jr.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit about Jermaine Franklin. He is actually pretty decent, better than pretty decent. I don't want to just, give him a backhanded compliment, but he's good. He has, like you said, he only had a couple losses to two high-level guys. And it's a shame that he doesn't get the shine, but it just kind of reminds me of my situation. I mean, I kind of forced it, you know what I mean, by being at the top of the game and fighting Vladimir and, always being in higher level fights. But at the same time, they didn't like me. They didn't want me there. So, I mean, he's not a big guy, just like I'm not a really, really big guy. So it's just a way of trying to, get him out of the way. So nobody talks about him, nobody asks about him, none of that. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate, but, this is boxing. Now, if he goes in here and he knocks out this monster, maybe we're gonna hear a little more about him. But if that doesn't happen, which maybe it won't, then once again he's gonna be swept under the rug. Unfortunately, obviously I don't know too much about the rest of the guys, especially like I didn't see Vargas Jr. much, so I'm not I don't want to say some things. I have seen Boachuk obviously, and I didn't see the fight with him and Adams though. So I'm not really, I just know that he's going to bring it, and I don't know if his recent fights. Obviously, he's been much better than when they fought the first time. So I'm just interested to watch this whole card so I can start to see these guys and be able to look at them and see what they do in the future.
Well said, my friend. And then just lastly, the one last thing to mention is that if you think we're done there, we're absolutely not. On the Sunday at the IG Arena in Nagoya, Japan, just one fight to mention. It is the main event. Naoya Inoue 30-0. This one for all the belts at Super Bantamweight. Over 12 rounds against MJ Murajon Akhmadaliev 14-1. Inoue's last real challenge at Super Bantam. He's obviously stepping in with, like I say, Akhmadaliev, who himself is a former unified Super Bantamweight champion. It's going to be a good one. We're not going to go over it too tough here, but like I say, it is Inoue's last real challenge at Super Bantam. I do want to see him push on to another weight class selfishly, but I think it's going to be a really good fight. I think that Akhmadaliev's going to cause some issues early on, but I would lean towards Inoue getting him out of there probably in the second half of the fight. You can never write Inoue off for a KO, but it's going to be very, very good. We're being spoiled as boxing fans on the Saturday and the Sunday. Don't miss any of it unless you are absolutely crazy. That then brings the review and the preview and the interview parts all to an end. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 516 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A massive shout out to this week's special guest, that man being one of my very good friends, the former WBO Heavyweight World Champion, Mr. Joseph Parker. The biggest thanks of all goes out to you, the listeners. Thanks once again for tuning in. Enjoy your weekends, people, which I'm sure you will. Stay safe, and we'll see you all again same time next week.